I learned if I had to believe in a conspiracy theory, it would be that foliage is more sentient than we are aware of.
Okay, why?
So, okay.
Okay,
So,
hear me out.
I first heard
Now,
about
before
this
I get into this, do you have any houseplants around?
not in this room. They're not threatening me. You can't let them know.
I have come on a mission of gravest consequence. For I am the Watcher, member of an ancient race far older than man. But though our power is great, we are pledged only to watch, never to interfere. But now mankind faces the greatest danger it has ever known. The danger of
The Watchers of Earth, 199,999.
Welcome to the Watchers of Earth 199,999. I did not need to look up at the Wikipedia page for that this time. As usual, I am your host, Andrew. Joining me is my co-host, Seth.
I am joining you.
Our third co-host, Joe, couldn't be here today because he was fired from his job at the Watchers Museum when he stole Seth's clothes off of a dummy. Our fourth co-host, Uatu, is here, but he's only ever watching, never interfering.
Today we watched Captain America, The Winter Soldier, which originally premiered April 4th, 2014. We're so close. As Steve Rogers struggles to embrace his role in the modern world, he teams up with a fellow Avenger and S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, Black Widow, to battle a new threat from history, an assassin known as the Winter Soldier. So, Andrew, in a sentence or less, what did you think?
Seth, allow me to answer your question with a question. Seth, in a sentence or less, why did you hate this movie out of all of them, just like you did every other one we watched? Why is this now at the bottom of your list, like all of them are? Because I love this one. I was not certain it would hold up on my third viewing in so many years, but I think this is the best one we've watched yet.
Well, Andrew, to answer your question...
And it can't be length, because I know that's the answer.
Actually, there's a lot of just kind of pointless, obnoxious fighting to me. I know fight scenes and whatnot aren't necessarily like what I love, but this had so much shaky cam, and especially at the beginning, it was like pitch black, and there was every time somebody had to take both feet off the ground, they had to do some wire foo flipping.
See, all that stuff worked for me. I thought a lot of the action is pretty well choreographed. There is some shaky cam, but I never had difficulty following it. I never found it nauseating. And I guess I really wonder how you define, I forget what exact word you used, but equivalent to pointless action scenes. Because I felt like every action scene served a purpose. Whether it could be removed or not is debatable, but they all serve a purpose.
That's fair. Pointless is a wrong word. They all facilitate something. It was just and we've kind of touched on this, and watching them week to week probably doesn't help, but a lot of it's just kind of like the same. And yeah, and fatigue and...
See, I don't feel like this movie feels the same. This movie is the first movie that feels legitimately different, and just because it's related to that note, when we get to the end of the movie and the end credits stuff, this is the first one that seems to be part of a larger universe rather than, while it is setting up the next movie, this is the first one that feels like it is establishing a wider universe as opposed to just movies related. It seems to be like this sets up an ongoing narrative to some extent.
I agree. I think, my fatigue comes in with, I don't know, a lot of the fights I wasn't that interested in, and a lot of the one-on-one hand-to-hand fights just feel samey. The submachine gun is the most boring weapon in movie history, and just constant gets grating after a while.
I mean, to each their own. The only thing I would really say is a complaint on my end, beyond general nitpicking, as we'll get to it, is really the length, which I didn't really feel. But it is a long movie, but I also think its length is actually, I think it does it, it serves it in a way that I think works. I was just going to say, I'm also someone who, I'm not a movie liker in general, and while you always say movies are too long, and I agree, I just accept that all movies are long, because I think every single movie is either, with the exception of comedies and like
Lord of the
PG
Rings.
rated children's movies, every single movie is either too long or too short. I do not. You say 90 minutes is the perfect runtime for a movie.
I do not say that.
You normally you do.
I say an hour and 45 minutes is
Fine.
the perfect runtime for
Sure.
a movie.
That's close enough to 90 minutes.
No,
But
you
sure.
can do a lot in that 15 minutes, and
Okay,
you can
you're
overstay
right.
your welcome in that 15
Fine,
minutes.
you're right. But still, point stands. I think every movie is either too long or too short, and I think this one definitely encroaches upon too long, but I didn't really feel it as much as I thought I would, especially because it had more going on in it than I had remembered.
It runs at a fast clip. I actually didn't feel its length too much. I think right before the climax, right when the helicarriers get in the air, I was like, okay, there's probably 45 minutes left. But it didn't feel like an hour and 15 minutes up until that point. The final fight didn't really feel like, I wasn't sitting there like I have in other movies just going like, oh my God, this is just going and going and going, and I do not care. This was something that I felt, like I said, I noticed the time when the helicarrier went up, and I was like, okay, we're entering the final act.
Mm-hmm.
So there's probably like 45 minutes. I don't think there would be an hour. I honestly have no clue how long it was, but that was really the only time I felt it. And even at that point, like I said, it's not like I was waiting for it to end at that point.
So we can go ahead and just get into it then.
I will say,
Mm-hmm.
before we get into it, that I'm just being who you want me to be, baby. I liked it. I thought it was really good.
Wait, did you really?
Yeah. I
So that was a bit.
half. I mean, I think some of the fights were boring and long, but and nauseating, but I liked it. Yeah, I mean, you wanted to put some words in my mouth.
I was doing a bit, but I was giving you a chance to be like, no, sucker, you predicted me all wrong, dumbass. And then
That's
honestly,
the easy route.
That's what I expected you to do, because I was honestly surprised that you did not enjoy this, or that you said you did not enjoy this. I was waiting for you to be like, joke's on you, idiot. I liked it.
Well, that's right now.
Boom, roasted me.
I was like, there's no point in me going longer, but I was wondering if you would call me out on it and be like, really, you didn't like it?
I guess
You
at
just,
this
you
point,
just accepted it. You have so little faith in me.
normally when I call you out on it, then it becomes like a big thing, and I was just like, you know what? That's just who he is now, so I'm just gonna let him be, let him go, and then we'll just talk about it. So I guess I am glad to hear that you did enjoy it, because I think if you did not like this, then you are gonna have a rough time through the rest
I still
of these.
will.
Oh, I guarantee, but I think this is the high mark. I don't know if others may or may not hit better for you. This is also the one that I think is the most different.
From what I know, this is the good one.
Yes.
This is the one everyone likes. This is the one that I was excited to see because everybody likes it, and everyone said it was like a thriller with a superhero in it. I can agree to that. It's got its problems.
Even when it
But-
gets to the end with like basically what is the superhero villain fight, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like any action movie where you get like the big bad guy that's in the way of the final thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going to be real worried if you hated this one just as much as the others, then it was going to be a slog to get through the rest of the movies, because I think
It still will.
this
Don't
is
hold
the
down
high
hope.
mark. But like, I think this is the one that diverges the most outside of like Ant-Man, which I feel is more comedy stuff. But we'll hit that when we get to it. But yeah, I think the movie moves at a good clip. I guess one, did you know who the villain was? Not the Winter Soldier, but the villain.
Robert
villain?
Redford?
Yeah, it's hard to say because I believe it's pretty clear. And I believe I knew that the first time I watched it, but I mean, I already had knowledge this time, and it's hard to really say what I knew when this came out. But I felt like it was incredibly obvious just because he had to be.
So I will say, I will asterisk this by saying I liked this movie. I think it had problems, which we'll get into. We are also watching this on a weekday, which we normally don't,
Mm-hmm.
and watching it earlier than we usually do. I was focused. I still muted my phone. Kirsten and I sat in separate rooms.
Like God intended.
Yeah. But I don't actually... There was a lot, especially at the beginning, of just like... I was kind of worried at the beginning. Like I said, it was really dark. It was hard to see anything. There was a lot of wire fu flipping, but it was all like I like wire fu in kung fu movies, and I think it's because they don't necessarily have the technology to... I mean, it's stupid to say like to speed up film, but it's a little slower. It's easier on my eyes, I guess. Whereas a lot of this was just like, this felt shaky. This felt, everybody had to do flips. I don't know why. It's because they're superheroes, but I don't know why. And I was getting kind of tired with it. This all leads into a thing, by the way, about Robert Redford, which is this. I think Did I know or did I not? I honestly don't think I cared. I think that's the answer. Like, I didn't care. Maybe I knew. Maybe I was like, oh, he's going to be the villain. I knew the Winter Soldier was in it. I knew Bucky was coming back. Bucky's back. And when he shows up, I was kind of like I said, it was just a lot of assault rifles. And
I guess there's like three things in this movie that I was kind of curious as someone who had never seen it, what your thought was. And one was the Robert Redford thing, because I felt like he was the mustache twirling villain.
Kirsten said she knew from the beginning that he was the villain.
Yeah.
It was not. She actually said for a movie that's like a spy thriller and who knows who's good and who's bad. Kirsten was like, I liked how this was just like a simple movie and you knew who the good guys were and you knew who the bad guys were.
The other two things are, I was curious if you believed Fury was actually dead, because that did fool me when I saw it the first time, because I knew that these were movies with actors that are getting older, that are only signed on for X number of movies, and there was a good chance that Samuel L. Jackson was just like, I'm donezo.
Peace out, y'all. It's hard in 2021 to be like, oh my god, Nick Fury's dead. But I was like, it wasn't me sitting there being like, he's not dead, who fucking cares? It was me sitting there being like, how's he coming back? I was under the impression that he was dead. I didn't know if it would be some like switcheroo of like, you thought, I thought, you thought, and so I knew this and you did, so I would do this. And it was a stunt double.
I was wondering if he was maybe a life model decoy, but I remember thinking like, I guess I wasn't necessarily fooled so much as I believed he could have died. As opposed to like, if Natasha died, I'd be like, okay, she's obviously coming back. She's got to be in other Avengers movies.
Silver Sable, though. Just
Thanks.
like you'll never let me live down my list of things I like, you will always have Silver Sable.
And then the other one I can't ask you because you know about the Winter Soldier, but I was trying to watch this movie and pay attention to it in a way of how it framed things. And I think if you did not know Bucky was the Winter Soldier, for a good chunk of the movie, you'd probably have no idea until the reveal is, with the exception of his scene with Robert Redford in his house. He's shrouded in shadow, and it might just been the contrast on my TV, but I feel like they needed to darken that more because you can clearly see Sebastian Shaw. And if you're not looking for it, you might not notice it. But it was like, that is definitely his face. It's not obscured.
I will say that Kirsten did not know, and she did not care. Which I think is fair.
I think it's easy to go into the movie assuming that he is just a faceless mercenary.
Well, and she was like, when his face is revealed, she's like, I know I've seen this guy somewhere.
I think
But
the
for all
movie does
she
a good
knew-
job of setting up who he is, like who Bucky is with that visit to the museum. And this is where I think the length works in its favor, because it sets it up enough that it's there. You have the information, but it's so disconnected and early on that it's very easy to forget it. But when his reveal happens, there's a good chance you go like, oh. And so when Cap says Bucky, you know who Bucky is, but they don't have to do like a bunch of obvious flashbacks like the Under the Red Hood animated movie does, where it's just like, of course this guy's Jason Todd. Why else would we be watching a million flashbacks of Jason Todd?
I will say this. I also didn't care that it was Bucky. I mean, I knew it was Bucky, so what does that mean? What does that matter? But I think the problem for me was it's obviously a big thing. This is Bucky, Cap's buddy, and he's evil now. But, and this is watching it week to week. I don't care, I guess. We saw him 2 movies ago, like 2 Captain America movies ago, and like 8 movies ago.
I think you're inflating both those numbers. This is only the second Captain America movie, I guess, unless you're counting.
I guess,
Avengers.
yeah, 1 movie ago, yeah, and like 7 movies ago. But it was just something that, like, I don't know, it's weird. Because I think in Captain America, Bucky's a big part. But he feels like a big part in that movie, not necessarily like a big part in Captain America's movie life.
I think
and that's probably disingenuous. It doesn't help that Avengers is between it, and it's like,
I think, to be fair to you and what you said, I do think the first Captain America movie does not do a super great job of establishing Bucky, because he's there early in the movie, disappears for a decent chunk. He's there for the back half of the movie, but he's there in all those stupid vignettes that they do.
mm-hmm.
And then he's there for that final mission and then gone. And that's like, you still have a third of the movie left after that.
He just feels like he feels locked into that movie. Not, like I said, not necessarily Steve Rogers' life. So when it goes into this, it's just kind of like, So I felt the same with Peggy too. And it doesn't help because you see Avengers.
I guess I would say Peggy is a big part of Captain America. She is definitely throughout the movie. I think their relationship is weirdly
Sexual?
established in that movie.
No,
but-
I think Peggy's better than Bucky, but I think in this movie, like, to me, I know we haven't, this is like our chance, but seeing Captain America in the Avengers already separated him from the 40s to me.
So he just didn't have a life?
Yeah, I mean, like,
I find
it's
that
been
weird.
It's been 2 years since the Avengers. It's
I
like,
mean, I guess that's
after 2 years he goes back. I guess Peggy has like Alzheimer's or something.
Yeah, it seems to be her
So
health
I guess
is
he can go
declining.
back, because I was wondering, like, why is he just now going to see Peggy? Don't you think that'd be like one of the first things he does?
Well, and it seems that he has been going to see.
That's what I mean. Like, that's what I was catching myself on. But I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I guess I haven't read a Captain America comic book in a long time. But like, it's not like, do they still dwell on the 40s?
I
mean,
guess
they've
that's
told those
unfair
stories.
because did Tony Stark not build his first suit in a cave then? We've seen 4 movies. He only built a suit in the first one, and that's in the first 30 to 40 minutes of that movie.
I don't
Did he just
understand
not do
the-
it?
I don't understand the connection.
You're saying like Captain America's so disconnected from his stuff in the 1940s because it was only in that one movie. But I mean, I don't know. The building a suit in a cave is only in one movie. Thor meeting. I mean, I think there's less connection to Thor and Jane than there is to Captain and Bucky because they met for a total of like 48 hours.
I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that. I'm just saying,
I just find it a weird, like, I don't want to discredit your
opinion, you can.
your opinion, but also like I find that very bizarre.
But also, what the fuck?
Well, no, I just find it bizarre to say like that entire movie is the 1940s. That's the whole first movie, and that's our first, like, we've only had one other appearance of Captain America, and it's part of being a larger whole in an entire movie. Like he's just a bit player in the Avengers movie. He's barely even focused on. But like I don't feel that severs him from his 1940s life, because I feel like, and again, I guess this goes back to your justification of like we've been watching these week to week and you just watched Avengers, but I feel like if you're looking at this as Captain America and Captain America's sequel, then this is the logical fallout, because I was going to say I think this handles the like emotional fallout of the events of other movies better than Iron Man 3 does with Avengers, where it has that whole PTSD thing that
I think that's fair too, but I also think the bar is fairly low. Like,
sure, but I also just like, I don't know, saying that like,
so
we had
to
an
me,
entire...
my knowledge of Captain America, like who Captain America is to me is, I get he's a 40s World War II icon that is timeless and immortal, but I don't know, he's always just been modern. Like, I've never really read his 40s stuff. I know there's stuff that I know, like his only World War II stuff isn't only in the 40s, but like...
Now, I guess that's unfair, because I would say from a comic standpoint, I agree, but that's the comics. These are movies.
Right, and I understand it's a different thing, but I still go into these as like, these are the comic characters I know. So I already go in with some sort of predisposition to who these characters are. That's why I didn't like a lot of the origin films, because I'm just like, I know who these characters are. I know where they come from. I don't need this. I know I'm not the target audience for that. I know this is its own thing. This is the MCU. This isn't the Marvel Universe. This isn't Ultimates. This isn't anything. I'm just saying, from my perspective and who I know, and like going into like, hey, I'm going to go, this is a thing I know. I know Captain America. I can't totally disconnect myself from what I know of Captain America and the stories I know of him and the other media, video games and TV shows and all that stuff. I have an understanding of who Captain America is. And so watching Captain America the First Avenger and saying, okay, this is Captain America in the 40s. That movie is entirely contained in the 40s, except for the final, like, 10 minutes or whatever. But then we have the Avengers,
confused
which
in the Christopher Nolan Batman series.
I am always confused. That's why I don't like movies. I don't understand how time works, Andrew. I don't get it.
You're like a point in the case of we can't have like a Batman TV show happen at the same time as the Batman movies, because people get confused.
I think you're giving me a hard time.
I am, but I also like I vehemently disagree with you, and I establish my points partly as giving you some shit, and also just like I think these are legitimate comparisons to make.
I mean, I don't know, dude. We've watched what? Let me see this. So a month ago, we watched him in the 40s, and we saw Bucky and Peggy, and he was like, "I'm in the 40s."
He did say that line.
And then 3 weeks ago, he had his, I understood that reference, and like I'm being in the modern world.
And he said, I'm in the 2000s.
And then 2 weeks ago, we didn't know who he was, or we didn't care who he was. A week ago, we didn't care who he was. And in this one, he's like, also, I still miss the 40s. And I understand that Steve, it's not like Steve has lived that whole time. Just like you were saying, so Tony Stark didn't build he's disconnected from the Iron Man suit in the first movie? No, because Tony Stark has lived that life. This feels like a new life for Steve. I know it's not, but it's just so like, because of the time difference, my stupid dumb lizard brain, who can't understand movies, just says he is in the future now. Like, not the future, but like, he is in the modern times. He, whatever. Like, he's fought aliens. He's met a whole bunch of other superheroes. He's like...
And his friends no longer matter.
I mean, it's not that. It's just like, I don't know. What do I, as an audience member, care, I guess? Bucky's a thing, but he feels so connected to the first movie. He doesn't feel connected. I guess
I disagree, because that's his, like, this movie even goes out of its way multiple times to establish, like, he does not make any new relationships. Mm-hmm. Like, the Falcon is his first, I don't know why I can't remember Sam is his first, like, real friend that he's made. And even then, it's made within the constraints of his action movie life. But it's, like, the first friend he's made. So, of course, he still is, like, hanging on to the past and his life.
But I guess we don't see, I mean, like, that is told to us in what I frankly find stupid, I guess, for lack of a better term. I really didn't care for all of Black Widow and Steve's like, you should date this girl, you should date this girl. I understand the point, and I guess I'm fine just like, I don't know, there's something about Captain America just like being this icon. It's something that like, this is 2 years from the Avengers, and I don't know how long the Avengers has been since Captain America. This is like universe time. I mean, I guess it's still 2 years from in real life time. And it's just like, I mean, I understand that Steve has lived for 2 years since he fought aliens.
So this is something that we're going to get into with me further down the line in these movies, but I want to bring this up because I'm going to argue against, not really argue against, I'm going to counterpoint, and then at the same time, in a weird way, I'm going to agree with you in reverse.
Okay.
So first thing, and I love this, we haven't even discussed the movie yet, but this is great. So first thing, like, this is, what you're describing to me sounds like the exact opposite of how I view the Marvel universe, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where my problem with these movies is that nothing happens in them except for what we see, and everything is we are supposed to believe that these people live these full lives that they don't. Like the Avengers, I told you, like, by the end of where the movies are currently, the Avengers have 3 adventures. 4, I guess, if you want to count the last 2 movies as separate adventures. They have 4 adventures, and that is it. Captain America has his 40s stuff, and then he's basically just doing like random shield ops that aren't important enough to watch, and then this. Mm-hmm. And then this leads directly into his next movie. And then he just has Avengers adventures, and that's it. He does nothing. There's no rogues gallery. There's no anything. There's no supervillains, really.
Right.
And that's fine, but it's weird because when you get to the last Avengers movie, and again, I don't want to get too deep into this because we'll get to it when we get to that movie, but you are supposed to believe in all of this stuff that I don't believe these movies earn. Some of them do. Some of it is just because some of it is from an outsider's perspective, well, from an audience perspective, from a meta perspective. It's like, I have been with these characters for, a decade.
Right.
And I have seen these characters in all these movies. And of course, they're movies, so they can't really do too much. Mm-hmm. But when you get to the last movie, and it's basically like a final hurrah for everybody, because spoilers or not, most of these actors retire, regardless of what that means for what happens to them in the movies. Like, when you get to that, it's a final hurrah that, like, doesn't really feel earned. And when you get to Thanos, I don't feel he feels earned. Because he's too big, and the Avengers are just a ragtag bunch of schmucks. And so, for me, I latch onto this interpersonal stuff. I find the Bucky relationship far more interesting than almost anything else that happens in this movie, because that's the stuff that feels real and earned to me. Regardless of, I said that the first movie I don't think really handles Bucky super well, but like, that's where I'm able to make that connection, where the other movies I'm supposed to believe the Avengers have have been a crime-fighting hero team for years, and they're all like a tight-knit group of pals. I don't believe that, but I do believe that Steve and Bucky had a life before they went to war, they had a life during war, and it was ended abruptly when Bucky, quote-unquote, died. And so I believe that that would haunt Steve. And Steve being stuck in a future where he doesn't really understand everything that's going on. He's still trying to play catch up. He doesn't really know how to make friends or relationships because he has no shared interests or life experiences with any of these people, except for people that are, 1 foot into the grave. I believe that he would be haunted by Bucky, that he would be, kind of lingering on this relationship with Peggy that never got to go anywhere. And like he tells her she lived a life and he didn't. Or actually, I think she says that to him.
I think so, yeah.
I believe in all that stuff. So that's the stuff that works for me. It's the broader strokes of the superhero universe that does not.
See, and I come from the opposite end because I'm going into this as someone who was surrounded by the zeitgeist, and that's what people talked about. People were like, oh my gosh, the superhero movie. This is a superhero movie where they do the superhero things. And so I go into it going, okay, this is like a big superhero thing, and they're telling like a long form movie narrative. Whether or not it's successful or not, I tend to think right now it's middling, but that's the angle I come in at. If I just watch Captain America the First Avenger and just watch Captain America the Winter Soldier after that, I wonder if it hit better. But because in my brain I have seen all of the stuff that they are trying to form into a cohesive structure, I know, coming from the future and watching them after they've already aired and everything and finished, I know that they continuously try to form them into a cohesive structure. It is a shared universe. It is a thing. It's the cinematic universe. They all go together. So I am apt to take that at face value and say, you want me to think these are all together? Like, this is what I'm doing. They are a thing.
I like how you say, I have to take these as all together, but I also, in doing that, have to say that the 1940s one basically didn't happen.
I didn't say that.
I know, I'm giving you a bit of shit here.
Like, by me saying that the first Captain America's movie is disconnected, it's because that movie took place 70 years ago.
But to be fair, that movie took place, 3 years ago from Steve's perspective? If we're going by the Avengers thing, 2
and
to 3
unfortunately,
years.
Steve is the only person with, out of, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other heroes that I've been chumming around with. He's just another cog. I don't know, sorry, Steve, but I'm working on other stuff right now. There's a whole structural narrative going on, Steve. Again, if I was just watching Captain America movies, it'd probably work really well for me. And I probably wouldn't be like, oh yeah, Bucky, is kind of a non-thing. But it's the fact that Steve does exist in a bigger world. And to put on your pants, what you're saying isn't wrong. Yeah, I wholeheartedly believe that Steve has trouble integrating with modern society. And the movie tells me that Steve has trouble integrating with modern society. That's all totally believable. But at the end of the day, I don't know, there's been so much going on in his world that he has interacted with and, to some extent integrated with. You said Captain America was a bit part in the Avengers. And I would argue, and I think we probably did and agreed on, that a lot of characters in the Avengers are bit parts. But Steve also took up kind of the leadership role.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't say he doesn't have any relationships.
Sure, but he has relationships with Hulk, who is not around, Thor, who's not around, Iron Man, who it doesn't seem like they have much of a friendship, but it's hard to say.
I would agree that
the two movies they've had, it's really just Natasha, and I assume Barton, being a SHIELD agent, has probably gone on missions with him. But Barton is a wet piece of bread.
And it's really, I guess, just whatever you fill in that 2 years with. I look at it as someone who read comic books and understands that, month to month, these characters went on adventures. I just assume they're going on adventures. Like you said, they don't matter because they don't show us, but they also can't show us because of the nature of movies.
So before I get into my thing where I kind of take your side in a weird backwards way.
We can be different. I'm not trying to convince you of it.
No. Because this is good. Because this is something I wanted to talk about that I didn't know where it was going to come up, and now you gave me a good opportunity. But while we're on this little bit,
this is totally serious. This is not a bit, Andrew.
Sorry, not a this discussion. Where does Black Widow fall in this? Do you feel like she has grown or established as a character across the 3 movies she has appeared in.
So Kirsten mentioned this when we were watching the credits, and I don't necessarily disagree in that I find there to be fairly little, not none, but fairly little, like, character arcs. And like we say here with this, maybe I'm not looking for them, maybe I'm looking at the wrong places, because you obviously felt a character arc with Captain America here.
I don't know about arc. I stand where I said in the first movie that you disagreed with, where I didn't feel like he had an arc. I thought the whole thing was that he doesn't. His arc is really just to be comfortable with who he is and his ideals. And I think this movie is a continued through line of that, where Captain America doesn't have to change. He kind of tells everyone else to stick it and continues to do what he believes. He doesn't have like a crisis of faith. This isn't a movie where they're like, all right, Cap, you got to grow up. Like, this is how the world is now. You got to deal with it. And he's like, no. And he doesn't. Like, he continues to play, not really by his rules, game. But he continues to believe in what he believes. Like, he continues to do what he believes is right. And in the end, he is not wrong for doing that. He doesn't have to learn any type of lesson.
And I think that's totally fair. But one of the thoughts I had after this was, these feel just like, I don't know how to say this because no matter how I say it, it's going to read weird, but they feel like characters and not like, I don't know, people. Like, it's Captain America, and I know who Captain America is, and that's just who he is, and that's just what he does. Same thing with like Iron Man and all the other heroes.
I don't think anybody in these movies has had an arc, a real arc. I think they try and say Thor does. I think they try and say Iron Man does.
I think Iron Man is the most of like, we're trying, but they fail every step of the way.
By the end of every, like, each movie resets him back to square one.
But it's just something that, like, I don't know. And I know they don't change in comics a ton. You know, like, they're characters. They are who they are. No one's reading or doing whatever with Sherlock Holmes because they know they read it because they know who that character is and they like that character. You can, do stuff and bring in relationships and do all this stuff. But comics also have the bonus of building more. With the movie universe, you're stuck to your 2 hours every 2 years or every so many years, just because it takes a long time to make a movie. And I think because of that, all of these characters feel very stagnant to me, which is, again, why I think I get a little fatigue, is because everybody's just kind of like stuck in time.
I agree with that. Wholeheartedly. Like, that is my big argument. That's also why I believe Spider-Man should not have movies. He should have TV series, especially now with this Disney Plus shit. Put Tom Holland in his TV series. But I think as we get further in these movies, you do get characters, good or bad. You get characters that have more of an arc and a growth across a movie. The problem is when you get to sequels.
And they've already blew their load.
Yeah, that, and just like, some of them get an arc again, but it's basically like the same arc or a dumb arc. Whereas other ones, it's just like, well, we did our thing, and now there's nowhere to go. And there is one movie coming late in the game that I think fails wholeheartedly.
Everybody says this is the good one. I remember everyone saying that, like, oh, this isn't like a superhero movie. This is like a thriller with superheroes in it. And I totally agree with that. And I think that's what makes it stand up compared to the other ones, is because it is, kind of like a thriller. I don't think it's super complex or complicated. It doesn't need to be, but it's a thriller, and it's cool to see a superhero in that setting. And so Captain America can just be a superhero. The problem is that in all of these movies, the main character is just a superhero, and he does cool things, but like, that's where you get into a 2 hour and 15-minute movie is an hour of fights, which, manages the plot. And hey, I'm not going to go see an action movie and be like, there's too much fighting. Where's all this cerebral shit? But there's also, I don't know, I want something more. I want to see these characters, like, I think it's really cool to watch Captain America kind of struggle with his relationship with Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. and Natasha. And I think it's interesting near the end when Natasha's struggling with, like, I left the KGB to go to S.H.I.E.L.D., but it's all just the same thing. Like, who am I? I think that's interesting. I just don't think, and I know we've had this conversation in past movies where we're just like, I like this idea. They just don't explore it, probably for lack of time and because not everybody wants that. You need to people want to see superhero fights. I'm not going to deny that. And I'm not going to deny that I'm not someone who does. Like, I think they can be cool, but I don't need half my movie to be that.
I find it a little weird because now you're saying you want like all these relationship things that I feel like this movie does. It's just Steve doesn't change, which I do not think in any way is a problem. But like,
I also don't feel like the relationships are earned after the 4 years since Captain America. I think in a pocket universe of Captain America, they probably are. But in a Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think enough time has passed, and we have seen Steve do other things.
We've seen him do one thing.
It's a thing.
One thing that occurred over the course of like
one thing, and the only other thing he showed up in. Like,
I guess from a different standpoint, and I know the answer to this, so I'm setting myself up for something I know exactly what you're probably going to say. But like in a James Bond movie, does James Bond have to change? No, he's the main character of a specific type of movie where
that's movie what I said plot, about. Yeah, I mean that's what I said about Sherlock Holmes and stuff.
Yeah, the movie plot is the arc. Like, it's about what's going on around him, not necessarily what's going on in his head. And this movie, I think, does both. And I guess it comes down to an argument whether they do it well or not.
Right.
You think no.
You think yes, I
yes.
think no, yeah.
But I want to say, so before we watched this, because it was free on Comixology Unlimited and I'd never read it, and Kyle, my little brother, is a big Captain America fan and really likes it. I read the Winter Soldier comic. It's very different. Almost completely different. There's very little similarities between the two of them. And I was honestly disappointed with it. I didn't find it incredibly interesting. It's also weird. I thought it was a mystery. Like, who is the Winter Soldier? And it's not. The Winter Soldier is mentioned, I think, immediately before they tell you, like, everybody but Cap knows it's Bucky. And they tell him this. And it's not, like, supposed to be a huge reveal, really. And again, I was reading this all in one sitting. Over the course of reading an issue a month, maybe it's a little bit, like, maybe it sits with you a little more. But for the most part, it's just like there's a faceless assassin, and it's not like who's behind the mask so much as just like, I don't know, Baron Zemo is a new character, and it's like some guy called Baron Zemo shooting people. It's not really like who's behind the mask. It's just like, who is Baron Zemo and what's he want? Who's the Winter Soldier? What's he want? Who's someone's pulling his strings. Who is it? It's in the Winter Soldier, I think, is mentioned like offhandedly, like at the final page of the issue before they reveal that he's called the Winter Soldier and that everybody knows he's Bucky. But I bring this up because you were talking about how, you know who Captain America is from the comics. And so this movie is like, has a weird disconnect or like reverb for you. Reading the comics, I have not really read a lot of Captain America. And my main idea of Captain America is in these movies. The Captain America of the Winter Soldier comic that I read was completely foreign to me. He was nothing like what I understand Captain America to be. They bring up that he's kind of like on edge and aggressive lately, but he's aggressive. Like, I'm fine with like comic stories. Captain America is no longer a man from the past.
Right.
Like, he understands how computers work. Like, I am fine with all that. I have no problem dealing with that. But he's just weird. He's like weirdly stoic and boring. I always thought of him as like the Superman of the Marvel Universe, like the big Boy Scout. And he's not. I think he's written that way now because of the movies, and most of the comics I've read now are post-movie. But in that, he's really not. He's kind of a jerk. He's aggressive. He is fine with killing. He is an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and works for S.H.I.E.L.D. and is fine with doing S.H.I.E.L.D. work. Not to say that he's like a bloodthirsty assassin or anything, but just like, he's not a superhero. He's a spy that wears a flag for a suit. Mm-hmm. Or at least not really a spy, but he's like an agent.
Yeah, he's a government agent. He's an asset. Like,
and it was weird. And I think that's part of why the story didn't really hit me, because that was where my cognitive disconnect was. I spent the whole thing just being like, why am I, like, I could not imagine picking that up and being like, I want to read more Captain America stuff. Because I was just like, this dude is
unhinged,
uninterested. Well, because he's not like crazy. He's just like, he's uninteresting. There's nothing that appeals to me about superheroes was in those panels.
I think, to me, and again, I mean, who are we to talk about Captain America? Because we don't really, I mean, even when I did read comics, I didn't really read him. I think I read Death of Captain America, and I remember like Civil War, and like that was like the most Captain America I can think of that I know. Like, that's who Captain America is to me, outside of video games and all that stuff. But like, he's always seemed like, or who I think of when I think of Captain America is just like, I feel like he's a little Boy Scouty, which is probably a misconception, and probably just my nature of, I think he's presented like, the last Marvel thing I've kind of been in was Ultimate Alliance 3 or Marvel vs. Capcom, where I think he's a little more Boy Scouty. And so I have that. It's probably a misconception, but I always feel like Captain America is somebody who is just like, I mean, like we kind of said, he has his ideals, and he like lives off of his own code of conduct, and like what he believes is right, and he fights for that. Did you find that in The Winter Soldier? I have never read The Winter Soldier, so I'm not like arguing on like that's who he is or anything.
In the second half, when they learn that he's Bucky, there's a bit of like Agent 13 wants revenge because Bucky killed her boyfriend. Steve like tries to pull her off the assignment, and she's like, "You're worried I'll kill him." And there's like a thing where Steve is like, he can be reformed, but it's also like not
like yelled while shaking the shoulders.
It's
he
kind
can
of
be
like weird. At the beginning, there's a whole thing where they're like, you know, they talk about where he's like kind of a loose, not really a loose cannon, but he's just like aggressive lately and on edge. And he like took out a train that was going to like blow up a bunch of stuff, but he like caused like a traffic accident and like killed one or two of the guys that he was fighting. And I don't know. It's weird because later on they're just like, "You're worried I'll kill the Winter Soldier." And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like at this, like from what I understood earlier in the story, he probably killed the Winter Soldier, whether it's Bucky or not. But what do I know? It's also strange because it's part of a larger thing. It goes off a little bit of Captain America history, but not so much like it is, as I understand, it's like the first issue of the Winter Soldier thing is Captain America #1 of a new run. Mm-hmm. But it has like some shared history of previous stuff. But it basically ends leading into more stories. But it's mostly self-contained. But there's a whole thing about the Cosmic Cube, and I'm not sure, but the comic seems to imply that this was not always the history that Bucky lived and or was revived and turned into a Russian hitman. It was that like the Cosmic Cube changed history, but it never explicitly says that. It seems to imply that it's like
you got to read further.
Some of Captain America's memories and then this and then like the whole thing about he doesn't win Bucky over. He uses the cube to make Bucky remember who he is. So there's not like that scene at the end of this movie where he's like, he says something that works. It's that he just wishes upon a star and then Bucky remembers who he is, which was kind of unsatisfying, but it was strange. And I think it's an interesting thing. But so now that we have talked for almost an hour about everything but this movie directly,
I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
We'll hit it as we go, because I'm just gonna...
Well, I don't know if it's like a story beat or if it's just like... Oh, I did want to say this, and again, to kind of put on your pants, what you're saying in defense of the movie and in offense of me is not wrong. Like, I think the movie does have character plots, and I think the world does kind of move around Captain America in a way that could be interesting. Like we've said in past movies, I don't think it's interesting enough for me. It's like, oh, this is a really cool idea. But then, I mean, it's weird to say that the movie kind of focuses on it, but just like, it ultimately meant nothing to me. And I think, again, in my defense, because the Avengers existed, like, there's nothing more for me to say about it. Can we get to the part where he fights that guy on the Bertrack? Does he fight Bertrack on the ship?
You mean Batroc?
Batroc? What did I say?
The Lipier. Batroc the Lipier. We open up with a thing with our introduction to Sam, which I only mention because it is going to be a thing throughout these movies about that on your left line. It becomes a reoccurring thing, so be ready for that. But we basically, for where it matters, we open up with this boat scene where a bunch of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents are being held by Batroc, the Leaper, and I guess a bunch of pirates.
No-name pirates.
And I thought all of this stuff was fun. I thought the like weird comic booky physics of his shield flinging around, like it's ridiculous, but I love it. I kind of liked a lot of the stupid wire foo stuff where he flips around, and
I don't think
all that stuff was
bothered
working
it
for me.
Here. It was literally like I said. Anytime somebody left the ground, they did a wire foo flip. It was like they're superheroes, so they can't just like do a backflip. They have to do like a crazy parkour move.
I thought all that stuff was fun, but I guess that's just me.
But
they're going in to rescue these S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and Natasha breaks from the group. And
does Cap
Steve
know they're
later...
S.H.I.E.L.D. agents yet?
Yes,
he knows one of them is.
I guess that's true. I don't know. I wasn't sure if everybody was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent or not.
I don't know. I don't think it really matters. I mean, it matters that one of them is. I don't know if it matters that all of them are.
Because I think it's a S.H.I.E.L.D. boat, because that's what Natasha was there for.
It is.
She's not there to save anyone. I mean, I'm sure she would have
pressed.
It was a
she had a
longer
gun
way,
to her head.
But she's there to retrieve information off of this boat before it can. She's basically there to grab a backup of all the data on that boat.
I will say this felt, I think we've touched on this before, the beginning of this movie especially, it goes away probably after the boat stuff's done, felt post-Avengers, where it felt a little maybe too quippy. Do you agree?
No.
Okay.
There's a couple quips in this movie, but honestly, I mean, there's a bunch of quips in this
Again,
movie.
I think a lot of the Natasha and Steve stuff where she's like, oh, you should date this like, I know it's like bringing him down to earth, but it feels so like in a post-Avengers world.
I mean, that's probably true. Like, compared to other movies, I'm sure that is definitely true, but it also felt like, outside of the fact that, like, it's a Marvel movie and they need to be quippy, it also just felt like this is like a 9-to-5 job for them. Like, this is not necessarily difficult for them. This is just like, this is how casually
it's
Captain
mundane.
America can do something like this. They fought aliens. These are just some pirates on a boat.
Yeah, that's fair.
But Captain America is not happy about not knowing everything that was going on in this mission. He doesn't like that people are keeping secrets. He doesn't feel like he can trust anybody.
Well, I was kind of put off with, he yells at Natasha for compromising the mission. And admittedly, he doesn't know her mission's different. But he kind of doesn't let it, I mean, not that he needs to let it go. But I didn't really feel like everything seemed to be fine. Like, as fine as a superhero.
He said something where he's like, so-and-so could have really used you. But I didn't really remember a moment where it was like, oh, if only they had another person.
Yeah,
there,
that's what I mean.
Like, different. It felt like everything was going well until he got knocked into that room by Batroc.
That's what I thought.
I agree, but it's also mostly he was grasping at reasons to be angry because he felt lied to, which may be reading into it on my end, but like, or not really reading into it, justifying it on my end. But he goes to Nick Fury, who then says, "Fuck you, I don't gotta tell you nothing, but you know what I will," and he shows him that they built 3 new helicarriers.
He tells him the plot of the movie.
He tells him a chunk of the movie. Not even a chunk. He tells him a bit of the movie. Because we don't know necessarily what those helicarriers do. Other than that he says, like, they'll be able to take out...
They're going to minority report everyone.
Did they know the minority stuff, or did they learn that later?
No, he told them.
Okay. I knew he said that
Cap
they could,
goes
like,
into
shoot
a thing
stuff,
where he's like,
but...
we fought for freedom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
You're right.
Now hate it. Now you hate that you're on my side now.
After this, Fury goes and talks to... I don't know if he's the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. or just the head of, like, a government thing.
He's just like, I don't know, like Robert Redford. Why does he get to stand and everyone else has to sit down in their hologram tubes?
I was wondering, like, what do they see on their end? Is he just on, like, a big screen, or does he have his own, like, moving robot hologram that paces around the room like he does?
Fridge logic.
Do they all have their own hologram room, or are they all just sitting at, like, a Skype thing? Are they all in Zoom meetings? And then he has, like, this... They don't even know that their whole body's being recorded through their laptop.
They should have all been on, like, Arnim Zola screens.
But after Nick says, like, hey, let's hold off on releasing these helicarriers because something's not right. Although I don't remember what sets him off, because I don't think it's Captain America talking to him.
I think it is Captain America talking to him.
Maybe it is.
I think it's when Captain America was
it's...
like, this isn't how freedom should be. And Sam Jackson was like, maybe you're right. Because I was near the end of the movie when he's totally on Captain America's side and like, yeah, these total death helicarrier machines are super evil. I was like, why did Sam Jackson like sign this off? Like, this is totally evil.
But he goes to Robert Redford, tells him to hold off, and then on his drive home, he gets attacked by a bunch of cops.
Well, they're not cops.
I don't know if they're not cops. I think they are.
No, they're not
if anything, in today's world, I know that they might just be cops. There's a
deliberate line about how there's no Washington, D.C. cops in the area.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Are you watching these movies? That's why you love these. You don't hear all the lies it tells you.
Yeah, I didn't catch that then.
Yeah, there's like, because his car tells him, like, these aren't cops.
He gets attacked by a bunch of cops.
Not cops.
He gets attacked by a bunch of not cops.
Hot cops.
I think this goes on a little long, but I think it's a fun scene. I like a lot of the weird, like, this is where, like, post-Avengers is where we really get into, like, they are fine with the super science, like, sci-fi bullshit. S.H.I.E.L.D., as far as it was ahead of Avengers, may as well just have been, like, a bunch of guys in suits.
Mm-hmm.
Avengers, you get the helicarrier, but that's really the height of the technology outside of, like, the laser gun that Coulson uses.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get to this, it's like, they all have Stark tech.
Yes.
Like, they all got his weird Minority Report
Screens
thing where he's like flinging shit around. They got their
talking cars.
Sci-fi hologram chairs, their talking cars, the windshield has its own like computer screen going on it.
How about
like,
it has like a gun in it, but it can only shoot out the driver's side window if somebody was sitting in the passenger side.
I was thinking about that, and I think it probably, like, that's a super high-tech car. I bet the passenger side also has one, and if it felt the weight of him sitting in the driver's seat, that would have popped up on the passenger side.
What if people are sitting on both sides? Can you not shoot the people shooting at you?
It raises the person on the passenger side into the roof, and it's like that cockpit in Star Wars, where he's like, don't get cocky, kid, and then he's like shooting in the little...
I agree. I think this was fun. I think Again, I don't like the constant fire of machine guns is droning to me, and kind of uninteresting.
I don't disagree.
Just like kind of uninteresting. Just like here's a scene of a guy shooting a machine gun. Here's a scene of machine gun bullets hitting a thing. Here's a scene of another guy shooting a machine gun. But I think a lot of these are fine until they inevitably just kind of go on too long. It was neat to see them all, like, also a ton of cars blow up in this movie and like constantly crash. But it was fun to see all the cop cars swarm in on him. And then he does, like, I don't know. It seemed like he, like, burned a hole through the center of the earth.
Yeah, I think that is exactly what he does. And the Winter Soldier does not bother to follow.
To jump down it and be like, he could only go one place. Like, later they do that.
This dude is, like, broken.
Later they do it, but there's, like, a gap between the road and the car so that you could just assume that, like, oh, they just, like, crawled out and ran away.
But that's where we see the Winter Soldier for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of special effects in this movie, or not a lot of, like, CGI outside of, like, the weird sci-fi
There's a lot
bullshit.
of practical effects, yes.
I did not think the arm looked super great. I didn't think it looked bad.
I thought it just was like it didn't take me out of it. Like,
it was a little too shiny, and it always kind of, like, stood out a little bit to me.
That's fine. That's his thing.
I will say, I said this about the Avengers movie, and you disagreed. I think the Avengers costume for Captain America looks awful. I think the one for this movie looks good, and then when he puts the costume on from the first movie, I think that looks really good. I think the one from the Avengers movie looks really bizarre, and I just don't care. It's almost entirely the cowl.
I honestly don't remember a ton of it, but I do like the helmet over the cowl. Doesn't that what he have at the beginning? I guess he's on like a mission.
No, his costume at the beginning is very similar. It's like design-wise different, but like functionality and like actual like pieces on it are the same as his.
Also, you mentioned this after I complained about
movie
Iron Man 3 being like, oh man, this is like kind of dark. And this is just like straight up murder. There's like a ton of like but here's I will say this. I think it plays better in a Captain America movie than it does in an Iron Man movie. If you would like a reason, it's because Iron Man is more fantastical than our world. Same reason I liked Iron Man using like a pistol in the first movie in World War II. Because like I don't know.
You mean Captain America?
What did I say? Iron Man?
Iron Man. And I think the other thing, and this is the big reason, in this I understand like these heroes kill because they're action heroes, not necessarily superheroes. Mm-hmm. And while I don't
they're
care
bad
for
guys.
it, while I don't care for it, I accept it. Like Black Widow is a spy.
It's always weird
and
when
former assassin. It is, but I'm fine with it. My problem with Iron Man specifically is within the universe that it exists in. He is a guy who used to make weapons and then goes,
"We can't make weapons." And then he's like, "I will be the weapon. Hey, look at me.
Yeah.
I'm the weapon now."
Speaking of what you do and don't like versus this movie and the Iron Man movie, and also about the Winter Soldier, did it bother you that the Winter Soldier's arm made noise?
Yes.
It did not bother me, and I was really wondering if that was going to be a point of contention for you.
And I will say, you tried to push me up against the wall with Captain America, and I said, like, it's not like Captain America's shield does it. That's a little easier for me to get over. And I think...
The shield or the arm?
The shield. And I think the arm as well. My thing is that Stark's suit is so high-tech.
See, I don't really feel it is. Like, it is, but, like, I feel like all the stuff S.H.I.E.L.D. is using is more high-tech than that suit. That suit is still, like, you see when it gets put on and taken off of him in, like, the Avengers movie, and, like, when all that stuff is going on, that, like, it is, like, interlocking pieces and, like, hydraulics and all this. That's going to make noise.
And I think this is probably just another thing of, like, I have an idea of the Iron Man character, and I know that, like, hey, this is Marvel Cinematic Universe Iron Man, but it's still the character to me, and, like, Iron Man's suit is just, like, crazy high-tech because Tony Stark is just, like, a super genius. Like, he has more technology than S.H.I.E.L.D. because he gives S.H.I.E.L.D. technology.
I mean, I believe that, but I just feel like the suit doesn't seem that crazy high-tech compared to what we see in this movie.
I think how the movie portrays it, I can see that, like, yeah, I mean, it is all little pieces going together and whatnot. It's not just a drawing of, like, a robot. It's not like a Gundam. You know, if a Gundam made, like...
I feel like okay, never mind. I thought you were saying a Gundam wouldn't make noise.
I mean...
Or are you saying a Gundam... Because I believe a Gundam would make a lot of noise.
I guess that's fair, because
And I believe Gundams do make noise.
I think of, like, Pat Labor as, like, yeah, Pat Labor makes noise because it's grounded, as much as a giant robot can be grounded. But, like, Gundams are, like, space samurai.
I feel like they do make noise, though.
I
guess I
do.
don't watch Gundam, so I could be wrong, but I feel like they make, like,
but I think,
a lot
like,
of chunks.
I'm imagining it, like, a Gundam, like, moving its leg and, like, stomping and being like... like, I don't know. There is something to that. But, like, I don't know. Iron Man's sleek and futuristic to me. So I think the arm, while I think it's weird, because it's, like... I know it's his shoulder, but I don't know. Like, I think it makes a little more sense because it's not as high tech as Tony's suit. That's really all it is. I think Tony's suit is more high tech.
Plus, if the arm didn't make noise, you would just think it's like a really fancy tattoo.
I would, yes. Or like a little, like, it's not necessarily like a robot arm, it's just like armor. It's like a weird comic
For a
thing.
split second, when he first shows up, or at least when I first saw his full arm and everything, I was a little put off that it wears a fingerless glove, but then I thought about it for half a second, and I realized, like, that metal would not have a good grip. Everything would slide out of it. You need a glove on there in order to actually, like, hold on to anything.
Speaking of holding on to things, at the end when Bucky is like holding on to the microchip thing, not a microchip because it's huge, I was just like, put it in the other hand. Put it in the other hand. Just crush it with the other hand.
So Fury escapes. He goes to Steve's apartment where Steve meets his neighbor.
Did you say maker?
Neighbor.
Oh, I made a maker joke. I
heard you. Steve meets his neighbor, who I feel the one thing about her is she's kind of like thrown into this movie. It's not like she doesn't have anything to do, and she shows up in the next movie, but I don't feel like she has a lot to do in that either.
Callbacks.
She's mostly there because she's a character from the comics, I guess. And I don't know. Anyway, Nick tells Cap that he can't trust anyone, and then he gives Cap a gigantic USB.
All the
Shield
technology
logo
in the
on it.
world, and you can't make like I bet it only has like 512 megabytes too.
Fury gets shot in the chest. Cap goes chasing after the guy. I love this whole scene of Cap chasing after the Winter Soldier, where he's like bursting through.
He's just running through walls.
It's amazing.
That's
he's like
goofy.
bursting through walls, and I love when he like turns that one corner and he like slams into the wall. It's great. I love that stuff. But he chucks his shield at the Winter Soldier, who then catches it with one metal arm and chucks it back at him.
It's nice.
They take Fury to the hospital.
Before we get into that,
mm-hmm.
I thought it was weird that Nick Fury tells Captain America he can't trust anybody, and then like his neighbor comes in and she's like, "I was working with Nick Fury," and he's like, "Okay, I'm going after him." And
especially
then, like,
since it happened so quickly, and it's weird because I think the movie probably did that with the assumption that we're supposed to be like, I don't know if she can be trusted, or if it's supposed to be like Steve is still naive and he needs someone
to believe in, or you can argue that like in the moment it doesn't matter. Like Steve is going after that, but then like after that scene, then he's with Maria Hill and Natasha and all these other S.H.I.E.L.D. people, and I'm just like, I thought you weren't supposed to trust anybody. Why are you just like hanging out with everybody?
To be fair, he's there. Like
that doesn't
mean
he trusts
anyone.
Yeah, I mean,
he's not telling anyone anything to the point like the movie kind of kicks off because he doesn't tell anybody anything.
But like a movie thing is usually like, don't trust anybody, and then you see him in like the wilderness. Not that every movie needs to do that, but it was just funny. Like, don't trust anybody, and then he's just like hanging around S.H.I.E.L.D. people. It's a weird juxtaposition for me.
I think it's weird in two ways. One because Agent 13 shows up, his neighbor shows up, and she's like, I'm Agent 13. Nick Fury hired me to basically babysit you. And then she's basically not in the movie again for a good chunk.
Mm-hmm.
And even when she comes back, like, she's not back in any scenes relating to him in any way.
Kind of.
But I mean, directly. Like, she doesn't speak to him again. She's basically... she's set up in a way where it's supposed to be like, can we trust her? And it turns out it doesn't matter because she's not around, which is weird. It's also strange because he says, like, don't trust anyone. And like you said, he immediately goes to the hospital and he's with all these S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. And it feels like with her scene showing up and then everything else going on, it's supposed to be like Steve trusts the wrong people and he should have listened to Nick. But like I said, like, it's weird because he doesn't trust anyone. And it's just kind of like, what was the
What are you telling him?
point?
He was already like that. If you want to get into something real weird, I don't know how medical operations work, but why did they put a hairnet on Nick Fury?
That's a very good question. Keep all the blood in. So Nick Fury, quote unquote, dies on the table. Cap is told that he needs to go to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters immediately. He basically says he can't trust Natasha.
This would be a lot cooler. I know there's a lot going on in this movie, but this would be a lot cooler if it was tied in at the end. Where, like, the whole big thing with Natasha is that, like, she's worked against the U.S. and she's kind of had all these moments. And working that in with, like, I don't even really know who you are. Like, I think that would be good.
They don't really get too far into that. Like, it's a thing at the end of the movie that she does have, like they say in Avengers, red on her ledger.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm. They don't integrate that with, like, don't trust people. And especially somebody like Black Widow, where, like, she's a hero. She helped in the Avengers. Like, how much does that Nick Fury being like, don't trust anybody? Like, well, you can trust the Avengers. You have to do some sort of mental gymnastics to just be like, yeah, but whatever. You can't trust Natasha right now. And I think bringing that in would help that more.
So he goes to S.H.I.E.L.D., but before he does, he sticks the USB drive behind some gum in a vending machine, which is real stupid. Like, I get that he shouldn't have it on him, but...
I didn't realize that was it until he goes back for it. I thought that was like a listening device.
Oh.
Okay, sorry, I'm stupid.
I'm just confused. I guess, I mean, it was such a clear, like, big, stupid thing, and I think he even looks at it before he puts it in, but I don't remember.
I don't know. I might have blinked during that, but, like, it was just a funny thing to...
I don't notice that the cops weren't really cops.
I listen to things. I don't see them. You see them. You don't listen. I did think it was goofy, just, like, peeking out from behind the gum. And, like, what if somebody just buys the gum? Like...
Yeah.
Like, kick it underneath it.
So he goes, he talks to Robert Redford, who tells him that Nick Fury actually was the one who hired the pirates to take over that boat, and it was all to cover his illegal dealings. But then he's like, but also, like, I know Nick Fury, and I trust him, so he didn't do it, but we gotta find out who shot Nick Fury, and so is doing this. But then he gets into an elevator, and he has a bunch of agents come in, and then he has a big old fight with all of them, and I thought that was also really fun. I like the bit where he asks anyone if they want to get out before they start the fight. And I thought a lot of the stuff, I like the like magnetic, again, the super spy sci-fi crap I love. I like this, that the guys with briefcase break off the handles and then they make like magnetic things to chain him to a wall. So he's like just kind of like kicking around at people.
I saw him break off the handle and I thought he was just going to like stab it with him, or it was going to be some sort of taser thing. I didn't see the connection. Like, I knew there was handcuffs involved somewhere, and I mean, it was a crowded elevator scene, so I was just like, whatever, there's a bunch of shit everywhere.
I also like that they keep hitting him with like a stun baton, and I don't know, I would assume Captain America's high-tech spy suit
is like rubber.
Would resist that better than...
I like when he jumped out. I didn't like, there was kind of a dumb scene where after he beats everybody up and then he opens the doors and he's just like, uh-oh. And then, like, I don't know, I was just like... I mean, it was high up, so there's a reason he didn't just, like, jump out of the window. But I was just, like, immediately, like, jump out of the window, you're a superhero, it doesn't matter.
But I thought all that was fun. He goes back to pick up the USB drive. It's not in there. Turns out Black Widow has it. She gives it to him. He decides to trust her. They go to an Apple store, which I thought was kind of annoying.
I saw at the beginning that when I started it, it tells you that, like, hey, this has, like, flashing images and crazy violence and product placement. And I was keeping an eye out. And I couldn't tell, I noticed they were at an Apple store, but it was all kind of, you know, in focus or like out of focus or whatever. There was a distinct like MacBook Pro sign that was in frame, but there were like big atomic glowy LED lights or whatever on the walls. And I don't have a Mac. I've never been an Apple guy. So I think I've been into an Apple store like once with some friends. I don't know what they look like. I don't know what they looked like 7 years ago. But I thought that was like them being like, this isn't a Apple store. This is like Atom store. And these are Atom computers.
I mean, I guess I'm pretty sure that they clearly were, but maybe
no,
not.
they were Apple. It does say MacBook Pro. But I was saying when they first got, like, I knew there was product placement, and I was looking for egregious product placement. And I was like, ooh, is this it? And I was like, I don't know. This is like, it seems like they're going out of their way to make them not Macs. And then they're like, oh no, these are definitely Macs.
They stick the drive into the MacBook so Natasha can hack it and figure out, I guess, where the data came from or something. I wasn't really sure what they were tracking, but it's in New Jersey.
Yeah, where the data came from.
There's a little bit of a thing where they sneak out of the mall, which I only bring up because I liked Natasha in this movie, and I also liked that it felt like over the course of this movie, she formed a friendship with Steve. More than just being like teammates. I did not care for the 2 times that she kissed him. Granted, like the first time is is for cover so that the agents don't notice them, but it was written to the script and it was kind of unnecessary. And then the second time is she kisses him on the cheek, which is supposed to be like a friendly gesture, but I don't know. It felt weird to me, especially because she's been so, I guess only in one other movie, but she was so sexual in that movie. Like she was an object for basically up until she's revealed to be an agent. Mm-hmm. that it was weird to me where I was like, in this movie, she is a character. But those two scenes stood out where I was like, those could have been taken out entirely. Like, she could have hugged him at the end or shook his hand or something, and it would have been fine for me.
They could have just,
then,
put their
same
back to the other side of the escalator.
Yeah.
I mean, I think... So I've been on the record saying that I think Black Widow's been really fun in these movies. This one, I think she was kind of... I don't know. There was, something different about her. I want to say that... I mean, when was the last time we watched Black Widow? 3 weeks.
Avengers.
Yeah, 3 weeks ago. Her voice seemed really scratchy.
I
and
agree.
It was bothersome.
I think Scarlett Johansson's voice is kind of like that, but I was really noticing in this movie where I was like, has her voice always been that kind of hoarse?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And then again, I am fine with... It's not a femme fatale, but it's is it a femme fatale? Yeah. Yes, right? She's kind of femme fatale-ish.
I don't know what you're...
Where she is sexy and she uses that
Yeah, but in this movie she doesn't. It's not... And that's that's a good
No,
thing.
I'm on your
But,
side. I'm on your side.
In this movie she is a spy.
It feels and it doesn't make sense because I mean, we already went through this with Peggy in the first movie. A lot of her stuff, and why I hated a ton of the you should date this person, you should date this person, is it felt like they were going through a case of the not gays.
Especially because this is a movie where the second half is a bit of him pining for his old war buddy.
And that's what bothered me about all of that stuff. And I think by the end, I mean, like you said, I think there is a friendship and camaraderie there between Natasha and Steve. And I think Natasha would be someone who would do a kiss on the cheek just to anybody.
I think a kiss on the cheek is innocuous. I think it's mostly the context of...
It's the buildup of the
movies.
case of the not gays for me that makes that kiss weird.
It felt like, I don't know, and assertive's not the right word, but it felt like a choice. They can't just... he has to be a sexual entity in some way. And because he does not date anyone or anything, her kissing him on the cheek is enough of a confirmation.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, it is a completely innocuous, gesture of friendship, but I don't know, there was something about it that just rubbed me weirdly.
Like I said, I think it was the context of
around
the first half of the movie in the case of the not gays from Natasha. And it was just always okay, does Natasha want to date him?
Yeah, there's a thing where it seems like she's kind of, like she did with Tony in Iron Man 2, it felt like she was kind of putting the moves on him, where she was asking him, when they were in the car. I don't know if she was directly flirting, or if that's just the way she knows to interact with people, or if she thought by flirting with him it was going to get him to open up or something. But it didn't feel like she was just making conversation. It didn't feel like a bid for friendship from him when she says what do you want me to be, and he says how about a friend. That felt like him turning her down.
I agree.
As opposed to if she was just what are we, or are we just work pals? And he's well, what if we were friends? It felt like she was trying to get him to say, because it was also after their kiss and she's kind of teasing him about it. It felt not necessarily she wanted to date him, but it felt like
she was putting it out there
in a way that just was that could have been cut from the movie entirely, because at that point the movie asserts that she is still a sexual object. Not necessarily only that. She definitely isn't only that, but that the movie it's one thing to be a sexual entity and another thing to be, it felt objectified in a way. She kissed because the guys in the audience would want to be kissed by her. So that's why that kiss scene happened on the escalator. And then that friends line felt like a way to be but that's not what's happening with them in this movie, but we still need to have that in there. And it's a bit of not gays, and I think it's a bit of Scarlett Johansson, and just she's an attractive woman, and that's what the audience wants to see. She needs to kiss somebody,
but does she?
It needs to be somebody that the audience. I think from a certain perspective, they're young men in the audience are going to they are sexually interested in her, so she needs to have some kind of contact with somebody that they are projecting on.
She kissed Clint Barton,
and that could be wrong.
I think so. Did she kiss Clint Barton in Avengers? I was trying to think.
Did she? No.
Well, you were
she did not.
I was did she kiss somebody in every
I mean,
movie?
she probably didn't, and I think part of this is just my jaded way of looking at these things. When that kind of stuff happens, I see it as completely superfluous, and then I assume it doesn't happen because the story needs it. It happens because somebody wanted it.
I mean, you're probably not wrong. I think there's...
Whether my justification for why that wanting is there.
Yeah, I think there's stuff where could I see Natasha doing that stuff? Yes. In the nature of the movie, did I think it was done well? No. I agree with you there. That it doesn't work in the nature of the movie, but you could do a scene where she does that and it works because I think a lot of that is in her character.
And I will say, like, in this movie, she feels more than she did in Iron Man 2, and I think even more than she did in Avengers. She feels like a super spy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I felt in Avengers, she felt like S.H.I.E.L.D. Agent Plus, which Barton did too, but I guess she's S.H.I.E.L.D. Agent Plus Plus. Barton is S.H.I.E.L.D. Agent with a face, which I guess is S.H.I.E.L.D. Agent Plus. And this, she feels above and beyond the other, like, she is just a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Like, I guess in this movie, she is also an Avenger. But like we kind of said in Avengers, beyond the fact that she does a lot of stuff, like, there's no reason to believe that, like, the stun gauntlets and everything that she uses, isn't given to, like, all S.H.I.E.L.D. agents that are in her field. But in this movie, she feels like, while Captain America is definitely superhuman, she feels like equal to Captain America in that first scene.
I guess I felt that throughout when we've seen her, like...
See, I didn't feel that way in Avengers. And in Iron Man, she could have been any S.H.I.E.L.D.
But she also wasn't really like Black Widow that, like...
Yeah. But they go to New Jersey, where they are at the training camp where Steve was before he became a super soldier. We get a little flashback scene that felt a little weird, if only because it's the only one in it. I mean, we get one other flashback that I can think of. We might get a flashback to when Bucky died. I don't remember. I know we get like a flashback of the Winter Soldier stuff, but this one is like a weird one where like he stands and the flashback happens in front of him as like a hallucination, and then like the flashback version of himself stops and looks at himself, which was weird. And I would have been, it's fine, but it's like the only time in the movie anything like that happens.
It didn't bother me.
But they find out that there is a giant supercomputer hidden in like a bunker. And in it, there is the consciousness of Arnim Zola that has been like downloaded onto this supercomputer because after Steve captured him in the first movie, he was basically recruited by the government to help them with their science projects so they could get A+ in school. And then basically what happened is when they created S.H.I.E.L.D., Hydra was there from the beginning, basically manipulating it so that S.H.I.E.L.D. has always kind of been a Hydra extension, whether they knew it or not.
This was a fine way to do Zola.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a fun way to do it.
Like, I'd love a Krang ordeal thing.
And I mean, we still could. He's blown up in this, but there's no reason that, like, the
face in
Falcon and Winter Soldier show can't be like, we all, do you think that was the only version? Like,
we had backups.
That was just like the first place where he did it. We backed it up onto like a flash drive. But
at like this point, I understand that like you can't just throw a face inside of a chest. But so I was fine with this depiction.
It was fun. It's a fun little bit of doing the comic book stuff without going whole hog. Then S.H.I.E.L.D. sends like a missile at them. It blows up. After they get out of there, they go and meet Sam Wilson at his apartment, which I don't know how Steve knew where it was, but that's fine. Honestly, I don't understand why they couldn't have met him at... We see Sam at the... he's giving like a counseling thing, like what to do with your life after you leave. Yeah, after you leave the army. I don't know why we wouldn't have met him there, because there's no reason to believe Steve knows where his apartment is, and it sets that up in a way that never pays off. Not that it's bad, but just it's weird, I guess, from a...
Maybe Sam puts his personal information on those brochures. He's always available.
Possible. But they meet up with him. He tells them, by the way, I can help. Cap always thought he was a pilot, but he's not a pilot. He was part of like a special unit of 2 people that had special winged jetpack things.
So in a world where S.H.I.E.L.D. exists and Iron Man, isn't it weird that the army's just like, let's just give this guy mechanical bird wings?
So from a certain standpoint, yes, but I was also like, logistically, like, that would be the way, probably the better way to steer something like that.
Instead of like a jetpack with just like a little jet on your back?
I feel like you would have far more control if you had actual wings.
They're so big in a war zone.
I don't disagree, but I feel like a jetpack would be real hard. Because, I mean, even think about Iron Man. Iron Man doesn't just have a jetpack. He has to use his... Now, I think in later movies it doesn't matter as much, but he has to use his hands and feet to stabilize. But I don't know if I... The movie has a lot going on, so it's not like I needed a scene of it, but it is really weird where he's like, it's in this base behind like all this security.
And then it's just like a throwaway line.
Yeah, and they're just like, yeah, that won't be a problem. And I honestly forgot, and I thought there was going to be a scene of them going to get it, but it's just like, nope, he's got it. Like, that's what I thought they were getting that agent for, was he was their ticket into getting his flight suit. But nope, they already had it by that point, and apparently nobody noticed that it was gone.
I guess it's to make his reveal better.
Yeah.
I forgot that Falcon was in this, and I thought he was fine.
I think he's fun. I think he has a better role in this movie than like Rhodey does in Iron Man.
And I mean, like we said in Iron Man 3 or 2 or one of them, when they're just doing like taking pot shots on the oil foundry site, I felt like a lot of this movie had that, especially when Sam's like on the bridge, just like providing cover fire, and like they're kind of doing, I mean, since it is a thriller before a superhero movie, like it felt like those scenes that I like so much with Rhodey and Tony, when Tony didn't have the suit, or both of them didn't have the suit, and they were just kind of doing like hiding, like third person shooter shit.
It's something like Rhodey is a soldier, and I believed that Rhodey could do stuff, but he also he felt out of his element in an Iron Man movie, even though he has a suit. When he doesn't have a suit, it's just kind of like...
Who are you?
Yeah. In this, I will say Sam feels like, and part of it is because he basically is like a super soldier, not like a superhuman strength soldier, but like he seems to be trained to do this superhero-ish kind of stuff to the extent that at least Black Widow is, so that he felt, when they were like, yeah, we'll get you your suit, once he kind of shows up and starts doing stuff, it's like, oh yeah, I believe that he's here to do this, which I remembered him just being a guy who flew that thing once, but he is like a trained guy too. That was what he did. So that he didn't really feel out of place. He felt like he was just as much of an asset.
I think Anthony Mackie did a really good job too.
And I think he has a bunch of fun stuff to do. Like at the end when he's like kind of flying around a bunch, there's a lot of fun stuff that he gets to do.
He has a role, which is more than we've said about a lot of kind of tertiary characters.
Yeah, in all honesty, my only real complaint with him, and it's extremely minor, and I don't really know how to fix
a red
it
and white
based on
suit?
No, with everything else that's going on in the movie, I don't know how to fix it. But he basically is introduced and then disappears for a good solid chunk until he's in the movie at the end. And it's not like I need him to be there the whole time, but it is weird, much like a lot of things in it's like set up that he's there, but then the rest of the movie happens, and then they just kind of like show back up at his place so that he can be in the final
I
act.
was fine with that, only in the sense that I was like, oh hey, it's him. Like I said, I forgot the Falcon was in it, and so I was just like, I just thought that was like...
Did you know that was him at the beginning?
I did not. I did not catch his name, and I just thought they were doing like a soldier's a cool thing. In fact, I was stupid enough, and when he has the dossier folder that says Falcon on it, I was just like, what would be the Falco? Or it said like Falco or something. I was like, what would be the Falco 7? And then Falcon showed up, and I was like, oh, yeah.
But they get into a big old shootout that I don't remember exactly how it starts, with the Winter Soldier and a bunch of mooks. Cap gets a big fight with the Winter Soldier where at the end he realizes it's Bucky. Natasha gets shot. For the first time I think I've ever seen in a movie, there is a legitimate reason why the villains have the heroes and don't just take them out. Because there's a news helicopter overhead. And so they're like, no, we can't do this here. Mm-hmm. But they capture our heroes. They drive them away. It turns out that one of the agents in the truck with them is conveniently, because I don't know how she set that up, is Maria Hill. And then they use the same thing to drill through the bottom of the car like Nick Fury did. They go meet up with Nick Fury. He tells them that with 3 helicarriers, they need to basically like overwrite their programming or something. And to do that, they need to take out one of these chips that there's like 1 billion of them in it. So I don't know how they knew which one to take.
That was pseudo-science-y comic book jargon that didn't work for me.
There's 3 helicarriers and 3 chips, and they need to do all 3. If one of them, if they put one in the chip, it will be downed, but it means like even one chip could take out thousands of people. So they're like, we need to do all 3 or else lives will be lost. And then conveniently, every Captain America has them, because you would think you would give 2, if not all 3 of them to Falcon, because he's the one that's going to be able to.
Each one.
Captain America breaks into the S.H.I.E.L.D. place. He gives a rousing little speech, which causes some of the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents to refuse to release the helicarriers, but then the Hydra agents attack. Agent 13 is there. She does some things, but honestly, she doesn't really matter to the movie. And then it's just kind of like an extended action scene where
helicarriers are crashing into buildings and things are...
But I will say it's nice because there's also the thing with Robert Redford where he has the other people that were in the hologram chairs come in, and then one of them turns on him, and it turns out it's actually Natasha doing more super spy stuff that's fun. And then Nick Fury shows up, and then they have to have like 2 different people's eyeballs to tell the machine to shut off or something. Or to release... No, Natasha's there to do a different thing. She's there to release all the information about Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. and herself. but they need Nick Fury and Robert Redford to do it. Nick Fury's like, I'm sure you deleted my retinal scans and everything, but apparently he had a different retinal scan under not his name for his eye-patched eye.
Yeah.
Under like Joe Schmo, and they were just like, I don't know who this guy is, but Hail Hydra, keep it in there, I guess.
I thought the eye reveal was a non-thing.
My big thing with the eye is, in this movie, at the beginning, when Captain America says, like, you can't lie to everyone, you gotta trust someone, and Nick Fury says, the last time I trusted someone, I lost my eye.
But he's just lying.
We do learn how he loses his eye, and I don't want to say anything beyond
Buckle up.
that line with the reveal of how he loses his eye does not gel with me.
You don't know if he was lying then. He's always lying. Lying to himself, lying to everybody else, lying to you.
I'd say debatably it's true. It's just
got a little sprinkles of lies.
But yeah, they take down 2 of the helicarriers. Did you catch any of the names, by the way, when they take that agent, Jasper Sitwell, and they ask him what the things are going to do, and he's like, it's an algorithm that Minority reports everybody. And he rattles off a couple people, and I don't know. I'm sure they're all
they
something.
Said
the only
Strange.
one I know is they say Dr. Stephen Strange. They also say like an honor student at something, and I'm sure they're all somebody, but I don't know who the rest of them were, and I meant to look it up before we started, and I forgot. But they need to like triangulate off of each other and satellites, but like if you take each one down, they won't do it, but then there's still one left, but that's also the one that the Winter Soldier got onto, and Cap has a big, long knockout, drag-out fight with him. Then he gets shot a whole bunch of times, but then even when they say like 30 seconds, and then he spends like a minute trying to get up there, right when they're about to fire, he pulls the thing out and sticks the other chip in, and then all the helicarriers fall. He has another moment just like in the first movie where he's like, I'm gonna go down with the ship, and also with Bucky, and he has a whole thing where he saves Bucky's life because Bucky was like crushed under some debris, but then Bucky fights him, and then I don't know, they land in the water, and then Bucky drags him out, and all of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s dealings are made public. Natasha is speaking to, I don't know, like the Senate or something. She's in some kind of hearing. I did not like when they're like, you got a lot of stuff on your ledger, like, we can't trust you. And she's like, yeah, but you got to trust us because, you know, when
you need us.
The going gets tough, you need us. That did not sit well with me. That was kind of like, you could say the same thing about S.H.I.E.L.D.
I had a thing
Hell, you
with
could
like...
say the same thing about Hydra at this point.
I don't know. I had like a weird thing with, I don't know, didn't everybody watch her fight a whole bunch of aliens and save the world? Like,
yeah, it's a weird, like, murky, it's like a murky, like, you know, you gotta believe in our heroes and the heroes know what's best sort of thing that I didn't, it comes off as a weird, like, cocky thing where, like, I agree, like, I feel like she proved herself, but also, like, at the same time, I see where they're coming from. Mm-hmm. She's an ex-KGB agent who probably murdered a lot of U.S. soldiers and citizens and whatnot, and it's real weird where they rest on this, like, especially when she walks away, she smirks with, like, I got him, and it's like, did you, though? Like, I felt like it should have been better if she had to wrestle with, like, she kind of when she talks to Steve at the end at Nick Fury's grave, where Nick Fury shows up, and he's like, shh, don't tell anyone I'm here, no one will suspect I'll go to my own grave.
That's the first place you go.
Where she says, like, you know, I gotta, like, I think she says something along the lines of, like, I gotta figure out who I am.
She's like, I have to make another covert identity. I
don't know. I felt like it needed to be like she has to address like what she did or something, but the movie's just kind of like, nah, she's a hero, so we just kind of like sweep it all aside, which was kind of weird.
I think for me, I mean, I don't know. I think for me, it's like she is no longer like the KGB agent.
Oh, I agree, but it's just
like I don't think she needs to wrestle with. I think there's like the line about how she thought S.H.I.E.L.D. was better, but it was just the same thing. Like she thought she was doing better by going to S.H.I.E.L.D. And there's that kind of throwaway line. But I felt for the most part, like I think she is under the impression that her ledger is no longer red.
I agree, and I think it's mostly the way the movie delivers all this. Like I feel like it would have been better if they said, "You'll pay dearly for your crimes." You'll pay dearly for your crimes. I feel like if they had said, like, you know, you might go to jail for this, and instead of her, like, quippy, not really
Avengers,
quippy, but her...
Doing an Avengers
if
bit?
It was instead of her... No!
Doing a Loki bit where you stare at the camera and smirk.
No. Instead of her, like, you know, you could send me to jail, but you won't, because you'll need me. I think instead, I feel like she should say, like, I accept what I did, and I'm better than that.
Yeah, like, defend herself.
And I feel like I've proven myself. Like, if she had said, like, I think I've proven myself, but if you want to send me to jail, do it. But instead it's just like, you won't because you know you can't touch me because
like
you need
she knows
me. And
she
it comes off of
in jail.
Like it comes off real snarky and kind of like self-important, and it's mostly just like this whole movie is so weirdly like it deals with a lot of grays, but the through line is like Captain America believes in himself and he doesn't have to compromise his ideals. But like I feel like it would have worked better if she had accepted and said like if you think I have to pay for what I did, then I accept that choice. But instead it's just like, you won't do it, cowards. And it didn't sit well with me. It felt like a villain line. Like where a villain is like, you could send me to jail, but you'll need me. Something's coming. And when that time comes, you'll need me. And that's what it felt like. It's not that, but that's what it felt like to me. And it was weird. But we also see the post-credits scene, which is a teaser for Avengers 2.
What was the post-credits?
Baron von Strucker, who still has a monocle, but it's like a cyber monocle that may or may not have been bolted to his face.
Oh yeah, he has Loki's staff.
And they were using it to basically create metahumans, and they talk about the twins.
Right. That's right.
And it's Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch.
Spoilers.
And then in the post-credits scene,
where Bucky goes to angsty stare at his museum picture. Just fucking stupid.
I didn't find a problem with that. That was your.
You love Bucky so much.
Why? That was a small way of like teasing later stuff and also saying like Bucky remembers who he is. Like, because you could say like Bucky like saved Cap but doesn't like
it.
Know who he is. But that was like Bucky is aware of who he is.
It was just a dumb visual to see him like kind of make a pouty face and in a hat and just like,
I don't know. Cap did the same thing at the beginning of the movie.
I don't know if he necessarily made like a pouty face, but that felt like Cap was reassociating himself with who he was.
You mean just like Bucky did it?
Oh my god, it's like it rhymes. Yeah, but
scene.
Bucky did it like a idiot. I don't know. And the fact that it was like, hey, you sat through all the credits. Here's Bucky looking stupid and making a crying face.
I don't know what to tell you, man.
I don't know what to tell you. If you like Bucky so much, why don't you marry him?
I would.
What if I could? Bitch. Can we end this? It's Wednesday. I got work tomorrow, man.
Yeah, we're still going. Shut up so I can ask you what your 2 put-ups and put-downs are. Seth, what are your 2 put-ups and a put-down?
I like the Falcon. I thought Anthony Mackie did a good job. I thought he was fine. Like I said, out of all the tertiary characters in all these movies, he was the one that like had the most stuff to do. Which brings me to my next one. This was like a very kind of down to earth is more than it is, but this was like a very down to earth superhero film. Again, because I think it's more thriller than superhero, but it was nice to like not see everybody flying around doing superhero things after watching a bunch of superhero movies. My put down is going to be, I really didn't care for the boat operation. It was dark. It was shaky. I didn't like, again, I mentioned this at the beginning. He has like a one-on-one with Batroc, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like that.
My first put up is also, I thought the Falcon was
Have you started
good.
the Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Have you started the show? Is it good?
Yep. So far. 2 episodes in. Second put up, I like the Black Widow in this.
Even her hoarse voice?
I thought even her hoarse voice.
Hey, Steve.
I thought you wanted to be done.
You're the one who had to like recount line for line the whole movie. Go ahead.
But yeah, I thought the Black Widow was good. My put down, I guess my only real put down for this movie is just I feel like it's a lot of not overly complicated, just a lot of parts, and I feel like a lot of them don't really
gel.
No, I feel like it, like I said, Falcon is kind of like gone from the movie until he shows up at the end, and part of that is just a lot of it is like the length and just like certain things like Agent 13 is like a non-thing.
It's just a little bonus for you. You know who Agent 13 is. You got to take those. You're like, ooh, I know this. That's when you turn to the person next to you and be like, I bet you don't know this. Oh, you like comics? Name every comic book ever made. I do this because I'm done.
I know, but you're all you're doing is making it go longer. But yeah, it's just I think a lot of the different pieces are just like weirdly constructed at times. But I mean that's a very loose complaint. So Seth, where do you put this in your total ranking of every
Marvel movie ever?
Numero
uno.
I do as well.
I was going back and forth on this and Avengers because, like I said, I think there's a lot to be said about Avengers. Just like, I don't know, it's kind of awe-inspiring to see it all come together. But I do think this is a better movie, which is why I put it up first.
That is also where I put mine. So that is, I think, our very first movie that is in the same spot for both of us.
Oh, and before we leave, I did want to mention, just because I saw it, I don't know, maybe like a week ago or something, somebody was talking about a line from Hawkeye in one of his books about like Cap and how Cap brings out the best in people and things like that. He gives the speech to be like, everybody's Hydra. And I really like that part of Cap. I like that, like, Cap is inspiring. That's why you kind of took the leadership role in Avengers and stuff like that. And it's fun to see, like, Cap do inspiring things.
I agree.
And just, like, make people greater.
That's why I said, like, he, according to these movies, is why I always say, like, he's the Superman of the Marvel universe. Mm-hmm. And I think this is also in many ways a better Superman movie than, like, Man of Steel is, because it's that same, like, inspiring others and sticking to your truth and your ideals. Mm-hmm. That I don't think the Snyderverse movies do.
Thanks for hanging out with us. If you like this, tell a friend. If you didn't, then lie to a friend. Check us out on Twitter at SoHowAbout. You can find me on Twitter at SethKumpf. You can find Andrew on Twitter at TessuDownist. And subscribe to us on YouTube at SoHowAbout.
And join us next time when we do this once more with Interference.
Watcher.
So, Seth, now the mics are off, what are we watching next week?
What do you want to watch next week? Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, All the President's Men, or Sneakers? How good is Robert Redford?
You know, I watched the first, like, half hour of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and I was bored to tears.
There's
like a scene where they just, like, ride bikes.
Yeah, I love it.
What the fuck is going on?
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is so good. That's why I don't like these popcorn movies, because I'm a cerebral intellect. My IQ is 14 billion. And I don't need blockbuster movies. I need foreign films. No, we're going to watch Guardians. We're going to watch The Galaxy Be Guarded, which we have both seen. And I liked it.
And so this time you'll hate it.
I like that we both saw it. No, I like that we both saw it. I hated the movie.
Oh, I stopped this file 2 hours.
I know. At like an hour and a half, you were like, then Agent 13 comes in. And I was like, ah!